My peaceful routine at Lincoln High vanished the day Ms. Wright replaced our math teacher. Her lessons ignored formulas, preaching ideology instead. I questioned it just once. She called me transphobic, then smacked my desk with a ruler. Silence swallowed the room. My hands shook. That symbol of order cracked trust. 2 weeks later she was gone, but her echo lived in every hallway whisper. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Before it all spiraled, I actually liked school. Math was my escape, clean, logical. When Ms. Wright first arrived, I was hopeful. She dressed sharp, spoke with confidence. But her first lesson had nothing to do with algebra. It was about identity politics. I thought maybe it was an intro, a one-time thing. Days passed, and math never came. My notebook stayed closed. I started dreading class. That's when doubt began seeping into every equation I once loved. In the 3rd week, she told us formulas were oppressive, that real math didn't serve everyone equally. I blinked, confused. Quinn, sitting beside me, glanced over with raised eyebrows. Riley later whispered that she's seen the same shift in her English class last year. This is what she does, Riley said. I wanted to believe it's course correct. Instead, I found myself hiding my textbook. Ashamed of loving math, even logic it seemed wasn't safe anymore. By mid-October, my frustration boiled over. When are we doing actual math, I asked. Her face hardened. Jordan, your tone is hostile. She slammed the ruler down, the crack silencing everyone. I didn't back down. Riley reached for my hand under the desk. Later. Quinn nudged me. He'd recorded it. I hadn't realized how loud my voice sounded in that clip. For once, I wasn't invisible. That moment spread first between friends, then wider. The whisper network was awakening. The next day, she called me out by name. Jordan thinks education should ignore inclusion. My stomach turned. Several classmates shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke after class. Melissa caught up with me in the hallway. You're not wrong, she whispered, but be careful. That night, Riley and I uploaded Quinn's clip anonymously. It spread like wildfire. But the next morning, a flyer labeled Jordan the bigot was taped to my locker. The battle lines were being drawn. Ms. Wright stopped teaching entirely. Instead, she started hosting discussion circles. We sat in silence as she asked loaded questions. Who here feels oppressed by STEM? Nobody raised their hand, but the tension was thick. I noticed her smiling when I stayed quiet. Riley proposed forming a student committee to address curriculum concerns. I agreed, but quietly. That week, my math club position was revoked without explanation. Principal Davidson claimed it was restructuring. Riley didn't buy it. Neither did I. Quinn found an old forum thread accusing Ms. Wright of similar behavior at her previous school. She bounces before investigations start. He muttered. Riley suggested we document everything. We created a shared drive. Meanwhile, Ms. Thompson, our guidance counselor, warned me. You're getting a reputation. I asked for what? She sighed. For challenging the system. That day, my locker was emptied by someone. No one saw a thing, but inside I knew this wasn't about one teacher anymore. Riley and I compiled everything, videos, quotes, witness notes, and emailed Dr. Garcia, the interim principal. We waited outside her office. She invited us in. Expression unreadable. I braced for dismissal, but she listened. This is serious, she said. Leave it with me. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But in my gut I sensed this wasn't over. It was about to get uglier. 3 days passed. Then Ms. Wright returned smug. False accusations don't scare me, she said during class, staring straight at me. My blood boiled. Riley whispered. She's been tipped off. I felt cornered. That night, someone spray-painted Jordan lies on the sidewalk by my house. My mom saw it before I did. Her silence hurt more than the words. I wasn't just fighting a teacher anymore. The school launched an internal review. Ms. Wright kept teaching. I was pulled from math entirely for my safety, they said. I felt punished for speaking out. Riley raged. They're protecting her. Quinn emailed his parents, hoping adult pressure might help. I wrote in my notebook, this isn't fear, it's fire. That symbol of order Ms. Wright once weaponized had become my reminder to keep pushing. Dr. Garcia called me in privately. She looked tired. Jordan, the board won't act without more public pressure. My throat clenched. So it's honest, she nodded. Truth's not enough. Noise matters. Riley suggested we go to the press. Quinn hesitated, afraid it's backfire. I stared at the local news contact form. My fingers trembled. But I typed, if the school wanted silence, they picked the wrong student. 2 days later the story broke. Lincoln High math crisis student claims ideological indoctrination. My phone blew up. Some messages were support, others pure venom. Anonymous accounts called me a fascist. Riley set up a hotline for students to share stories. It flooded with entries, but with visibility came fear. I stopped walking alone. My mom started sleeping by the door. Still, I knew we couldn't stop now. A town hall was announced. Parents, students, reporters packed the gym. Ms. Wright sat in the front row, arms crossed. When I stepped up to speak, my voice trembled. This isn't about politics, it's about education. A few clapped, then more. I met Ms. Wright's eyes. She looked away. That night, Riley whispered, we turned the tide. But I still felt the next wave rising. Just when I thought things would settle, Principal Davidson emailed my mom. Jordan has become a distraction. I was pulled from student council. No warning. Riley stormed into the office demanding answers. They cited emotional wellness. That afternoon, a student I didn't know handed me a folded note. She did this at my old school too. I'll talk. Attached was a photocopy of a previous complaint, redacted, but damning. The pattern wasn't speculation anymore, it was documented. We tracked the student down. Her name was Ava, from Westfield High. She told us Wright had used the same tactics, ideological lectures, silencing dissent, public humiliation. She left before the board acted, Tava said. Riley recorded everything. Linda Jackson, our lawyer, added Ava's statement to the case. This connects jurisdictions, she said. My mom finally joined us at the table. They messed with the wrong daughter. Her voice didn't shake. For once she believed me fully. The board held an emergency meeting. Linda demanded Wright's full employment record. What surfaced shocked even her 3 prior schools, 2 settlements, 1 non-disclosure agreement. They knew, Riley whispered. Every administrator let her move on. Dr. Garcia looked ill. I wasn't told, she said quietly. Davidson stayed silent. That night, our group met with 3 more parents whose kids had been silenced. What started with one voice now echoed through a dozen. The revolution was no longer mine alone. Ms. Wright abruptly resigned. No goodbye, no explanation, but an envelope appeared in my locker. No name, just my name scrawled in ink. Inside a letter. I lost sight of why I started teaching. I'm sorry, no signature. I read it 3 times, Riley said. Could be fake. But something about the penmanship matched the notes she'd scribble on the board. I didn't forgive, but for the first time, I felt her power over me unraveling. The press latched onto the resignation. Lincoln High whistleblower forces educator out. One headline read. But some headlines twisted it. Teen targets progressive teacher. I was invited to debate on a podcast. Riley advised against it. Don't feed them. Still, I accepted. I spoke clearly, facts in hand. The host tried to bait me. I stayed focused. Afterwards, a girl messaged me. I wish I had your courage. That meant more than any article ever could. Principal Davidson was suspended pending investigation. Dr. Garcia stepped in fully. We need systemic change, she told the staff. Riley helped draft new complaint protocols. Quinn designed anonymous survey systems. I met with state board reps. Each step was exhausting but real. One day, Ms. Thompson pulled me aside. You scared them into listening, she said. I shrugged. Not scared, reminded. Her eyes softened. For the first time, I saw genuine respect instead of warning. A documentary crew reached out interested in telling our story. I hesitated. Riley grinned. Only if we control the narrative. We negotiated full editorial input. Filming began that spring. Interviews, old footage, Ava's testimony. It all felt surreal at the premiere. I sat between my mom and Riley, clutching a worn-out notebook. When my voice came on screen, I held my breath. Then came applause, not for the drama, for the fight, for refusing to stay silent. The documentary sparked national conversation. Educators wrote op-eds. Parents demanded curriculum transparency. Even a state senator cited our case in a school board bill. I felt overwhelmed, exposed. But Riley reminded me, visibility protects. At a coffee shop, a woman approached me. My daughter dropped out after something similar. Thank you, I hugged her without words. The revolution had faces now hurt, hopeful and finally heard. We weren't just stories, we were catalysts for change. Riley proposed launching a nonprofit Classroom Voices to train students in advocacy. Quinn built the website. I wrote our mission statement. Every student deserves truth and safety. Linda filed the paperwork pro bono. We held our first workshop in the library. Only 7 showed up. But by month's end, we needed a bigger space. The walls of resistance had cracked. What started with a raised hand had become an organized movement, and none of us were backing down. We received our first grant, $10,000 from a youth justice fund. Riley screamed when the email hit. I sat stunned. Money meant reach. We ordered supplies, hired a part-time coordinator, and built a training module. Quinn added a blog, student testimonies from across the country. It's working, he whispered. One night, scrolling through submissions, I paused on a message. You saved my semester. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like finally breathing again. Quinn's blog post about survey data showing curriculum bias trends went viral. Some educators pushed back. Aren't kids too young to judge pedagogy? But the numbers spoke. Riley organized a Zoom panel. Students, teachers, parents, dialogue, not debate. I watched a teacher from Nevada say, I thought I was helping until I saw this data. That was the shift. Not silence or rage but clarity. Wright's methods weren't isolated. They were a symptom, and now the cure had momentum. Our school added midterm evaluations, anonymized, reviewed by third parties. Dr. Garcia credited student leadership in her announcement. Davidson officially resigned, citing personal reasons. Rumors swirled, but we didn't chase them. We had bigger goals. Riley smiled across the courtyard. Mouthing, we did that. The calc board, once a battlefield, now held math problems again, real ones. I stayed after school, solving quadratic equations for fun. Logic returned not just to class, but to the system we dared to question. At graduation, Dr. Garcia invited me to speak. My hands trembled holding the mic. Some lessons aren't in textbooks, I began. Some are learned by standing up. I saw Riley nod, tears brimming. Quinn gave a quiet thumbs up. The crowd applauded not just politely, but deeply. Later, a freshman handed me a notebook. I want to be like you. I gripped it like a torch. My voice had changed more than policy, it reshaped courage itself. The summer after graduation, we held a regional summit. Students came from 5 districts, workshops, panels, and one shared mantra: education with integrity. Iva flew in, speaking on stage for the first time. She shook holding the mic, then steadied. Silence used to feel safe, but not anymore. Applause drowned the auditorium. I watched from the wings, pride swelling. This wasn't about Miss Wright anymore. It was about everyone who ever questioned, suffered, and dared to speak. A year later, I returned to Lincoln High not as a student but as a guest speaker. The classroom looked smaller. A new math teacher greeted me, one who smiled, introduced the lesson plan, and handed out calculators. I spoke to juniors about advocacy, truth, and resilience. One girl asked, "Didn't you ever want to give up?" I smiled. Almost every day, but giving up never changed anything. Her nod was slow but firm. Seeds were planted again. On my way out of Lincoln High, I passed the old locker, the one that once held threats and silence. Now it had a sticker, "Ask questions loudly." I ran my fingers across it. Riley texted, "We're featured in the state curriculum this fall." I laughed. From pride to policy, from victim to voice. I snapped a photo of the sticker, not for social media, just for me. Proof that once I asked a question and everything changed. Looking back, I don't remember the fear as clearly as the moments I defied it. Riley's laugh, Quinn's quiet courage, Ava's voice, that's what stayed. The notebook, once closed in shame, now brims with notes from students across the country. My anger didn't vanish, it transformed, into purpose, into power. I learned that silence protects systems, not people, and that one voice, steady and stubborn, can start an unstoppable ripple. I still carry the ruler Ms. Wright cracked against my desk, not as a wound but as a symbol. Of the moment I chose to speak. Of the system that tried to silence me. Of every student who now raises their hand and refuses to lower it. Some days are quiet, some heavy, but every workshop, every story, every question asked out loud proves we didn't just survive. We changed the rules of the classroom forever. Ms. Wright never returned to teaching. Her resignation was final. Davidson's silence cost him more than a title, it cost trust. But it wasn't about punishment anymore. Our district adopted reform policies. Classrooms got transparency. Students got dignity. The fear that once echoed in whispers was replaced by questions loud, thoughtful, unapologetic. That was our real victory. That's what stayed. I teach now part-time. Advocacy through storytelling. I tell students, if a ruler ever strikes again, let it awaken 1,000 voices. My classroom doesn't fear questions, it's built on them. And every time a student dares to speak, to challenge, to ask why, I smile, because somewhere between fear and fire, I learned how revolutions really start, and how they never truly end. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.